Hey guys, Mike here. So, but what a nice red day today. And again, on this channel, we don't clickbait, so you're not going to see any crash, terms in the thumbnail or the title or anything like that. But what we are going to talk about is facts. Okay, we're going to talk about what's happening in this market, something that's good that's happening in this market. Also, 2 levels to watch on the S&P 500 or the SPY, whichever one you track. One held today. Okay, there's another one to watch out for. I'll also give you a 3rd level to keep your eye on. Okay. In case you're looking for something like this to happen. Remember, we're in an abnormal market. Okay, you don't get 4 gap ups in a row very often. I don't know what the answer is. Honestly, I didn't even research it, but I'd be willing to bet, just to guess, that it hadn't happened more than a handful of times. Okay, and if you happen to know the answer, put it in the comments. Let us know, please. But I'd be willing to bet that. I've been watching the market long enough. That's not something you normally see. And so, again, we'll get into all of that right there. We're going to get some stocks in case you own them, because things are definitely coming to that point now. Okay, we're going to talk about breath. That's very boring. Doesn't get any clicks either. But I've been talking about it forever, it seems like. So we'll talk about that too. But also, you're getting a lot of stuff coming into either oversold on the short-term time frames, coming into bounce areas. And, we'll talk about the fear and greed index, which everybody in the market is talking about. It's an extreme fear. And I'm going to tell you, there's a reason for this. 1 is because people got way over leveraged. 2 is they got way too far strung out on this high beta stuff, the energy stocks, the lower float type, highly shorted stocks that were going to the moon. And like we talked about in many Saturday videos when you asked me about them, even in the weekday videos, when they pull back, people are going to be throwing up in trash cans. They're going to be panicking like crazy. And that's what's happening. Bitcoin going below 100K today. Ethereum coming right down that bounce spot I told you. It's either bounce or die, right? It's there. A little bit room left in that one. Okay, we're going to talk about that too. We're also going to go into a lot of the high beta names as well, because they're at points where they need to bounce. So they're at a point where they should bounce. If they don't, obviously there'll be more, pain ahead for them. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at this, I can put the morning news brief. It's like every morning is like, look at this breath, man. First of all, fear and greed index, I've done videos on this showing the members and you guys how broke this thing is. It was at 31 this morning. I'll show you what it is right now. But you can see on the S&P 500, 38% of stocks, which this will be lower by tomorrow, okay? 38% of stocks above the 50-moving average. This is probably like, I'm guessing 35, 34 right now. It'll update at the end of the day. Above the 200 on the NASDAQ 100, Russell, and S&P. They're still above 50, okay? The VIX was moving up. But you can see the fear and greed index. Everybody's like, oh my God. Why this is crazy is we were all-time highs a few days ago, okay? And it's an extreme fear. But it's been broken for 2 years. I proved it. It is what it is. You asked me why I keep putting it there. I don't know. There's another one I like, but it doesn't get updated enough. So maybe I'll just take it out one day. I'm hoping it'll correct it. So anyway, going on to the SPY. I told you guys I was going to keep these trend lines in here because I really felt they were going to come into play again. And so they did. Probably a little quicker than I thought they would. But in pre-market, we got to retest that previous all-time high like we talked about to the penny. Bing, bounced right there. Didn't come down and retest it again in regular hours. It got a nice little bounce in pre-market. So we'll see if that's going to be the test. Again, a lot of people don't count pre-market because they're like, oh, there's not enough volume, whatever. It is what it is. But we did, okay? And that's a very important level in that area, which we're going to talk about in just a second, that it held there. And there's a reason why it held there, a couple of reasons. But, when you look at this, what's one of my favorite things to look for? These big fair value gaps, right? 2 of them like this in the 4 hour. So if we do come down, watch for that 666 to 669 area to try to hold. If it doesn't hold there and it comes up and rejects off of it, it's going to be super bearish. But when you look at these levels on the options market, remember that's, the dog, not the tail wagging the dog, okay? Got 675, 1.2 billion worth of premium, and then another 1.1 billion at 670. So remember what I told you we bounced off of? We held 675. That's where we held all day. That was the bottom, okay, for today. So if we do break below that, maybe watch for 670. That is a big level. And if you didn't put it together, that box I just showed you with those 4 hour fair value gaps, that's 670. So there is support there to be had, okay? Now, when you look at this, I kept this trend line in place for another reason. If we did break it, we came back up and we rejected off of it, okay? So that'll be resistance going ahead. We're only down 2.18% though, folks. So everybody needs to take a breather, go outside, walk around the grass, because people are acting like they're down 30%, but it's because they're probably looking at the crypto, the high beta names, that kind of stuff. Now, if you're looking for a 5% pullback, I'm just going to put this level out there. Guess what that is? That's the Trump candle, the old China candle and stuff. That would put us about 5.3 3% down and take it out, okay? Am I calling for that? Of course not. I mean, nobody can call for that. But remember, we hadn't had a 5% pullback in quite a while. Since April, not more than 3.3%, I believe it is. And so when you look back, the last time we actually had just a legitimate 5% pullback was right there in December of last year through January. And then, of course, it came back up. And then, of course, the whole tariff board happened. And there we go. Now, again, not a normal market because why? What's happening here? 1, 2, 3, 4 gap ups. I said it when it happened. That is super rare. I don't know what the record is. Nobody answered me in the comments. So I assume nobody knows what the record is. So what are we doing now? We're doing something very good for the market. We are filling gaps. 1 down, 2 down. Missed this one by about 80 cents, I think it was. But almost 3. That's not a bad thing. And you can see right here, Apple's like, whatever, hold my beer. I don't know what y'all talking about, a red market. Anyway, Microsoft held up really well. NVIDIA needed to pull back. And we all know it. Google needed to pull back. All these do. I mean, come on. Amazon's been running like crazy. Meta has been pulling back. I think we'll talk about that one in just a second. And then, of course, Oracle, it's also a mess too. But they're coming in those areas we talked about. Okay. Now, again, I love this little, I mean, it's not a meme, it's a chart, but it's like, why is it even still called the S&P 500? And, of course, why do they say that? Because back here made sense, right? Now, you look at the Mag 7. 14% of the cumulative returns for the S&P 500. So you just look at there, the other 493, and you can see by the breadth too. I mean, it's amazing how it works. Now, Oracle is coming in there. It's at the bottom of this channel. It's at the 0.79 fill. We've been talking about this for a while. It missed the gap fill, I think, by like 60 cents today. So, you know, within government terms, that's actually a fill, right? I mean, but once it broke that previous all-time high, those are important levels. Then boom, down we went, gap down here. So we're at the bottom of that channel. All right, so is this a great bounce point? Absolutely, it's a great bounce point. And when you look below, can it go lower? Absolutely, it can go lower. Another thing we're in a weekly FEG. That's a large FEG. That's why we've been kind of grinding down over the last 2 weeks, just mitigating this, okay? Because there is gaps down below. And so, yes, can it go lower? Absolutely, it can go lower. I'm not saying it can't go lower. Just telling you, if you're into Oracle, it just lines up with so many different things. Could there be another capitulatory moment, some news that comes out? Absolutely, there could be. I mean, we're below the 50, we're below the 100 now. 200 is way down there. And Oracle's one, I'm not nowhere near as familiar with this one as I am the other Mag 8s. Okay, they call this the Mag 9 because of what it did on the earnings thing. But again, 221.53 will be a nice area. So a little bit of support going on there if it happens to fall below. Because if it does break down through that channel, like that is bearish. I mean, let's just be real about it. Okay, that is super bearish. So keep that in mind. But just don't be surprised if you do get a bounce, okay? Now, Meta, again, what did people not do? They didn't look at the 3-day rule. Once you reject off that 200, especially rejecting off 200 from the bottom, you got to at least give it 3 days. You can see we're 4 days, a new lower low now, okay? 4 days down on this thing, and it's down nicely. The 50 is about to cross over the 100 right there. And so, but it's coming into that area that we just keep talking about. You know, there's a big gap down there, golden pockets down there. We're talking about retracing all the way from the April low. As far as I have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure, wouldn't it be the first Mag 8 to actually do that, if I'm not mistaken? Maybe Amazon did. I'd go double check. Let me know in the comments if you know off the top of your head. But again, momentum, you know, RSI, bears are completely in charge. RSI is below 50. I won't say completely. Again, let me take that back because the MACD is not below the zero line, but you've had the bearish MACD cross. If it's below the zero line, then bears would be completely in control. But it is starting to get oversold on a lot of lower time frames, okay? Now, JD here, again, this is another one. It reports next week, and, you know, you can see it hit the 0.79 fib to the penny, and the real question is this going to be one of those, like, W-shaped patterns? Just follow the fibs to the T. And so, you know, this right here is a lot of people are going to look for. Baidu is actually up today. We'll see. These things ran a lot. This one actually didn't. It ain't even got out of the gates yet. So, you know, it's another one people are looking at. And I'm trying to find things that are in somewhat of a discount, or maybe, you know, if we do get a rally going, can actually make a big move. CoreWeave's a mess once it broke that trend line right there. Again, it's breaking down through these anchor VWAPs right here. Look for 113. If that breaks, guess where we're going? Right down this gigantic weekly FEG. And so watch anywhere from 98 to 108 right there, I believe it is. If that happens, you know, this is one of these data centers, but, you know, it's a high flyer, as you can see from that move it made up. and it's all about the data centers, and those are taking a hit, right? Avgo, I was telling members about, anywhere from 346, 356, from the golden pocket to the 0.79, actually 356 to 360. It's in this discount, but it has a gap down below as well, but it could bounce at any moment, okay? MP, again, this one continues to go down. A lot of people want it to come down in the 40s. We'll see if it gets it. There's that gap we talked about. It's below the 50, below the 100, the 50 rolling over. Once China gave their news, they weren't going to restrict anything. So I said, watch out. It's probably going down because of that, and that's what happens. Like, you need China or somebody to come out, I guess, in a way, really, and say, hey, we're being more restrictive here, or they need to do good on earnings. I don't think they've had earnings yet, so this is another one. We'll see what happens there. But again, a lot of people, they're setting in at 90, 95. And as we go through these, I'm going to talk about the psychology of what's going to happen if we do start to come back up on these kind of stocks. And then there's your quantum computing stocks, which, believe it or not, held up a lot better than most because they actually got a nice little bounce. And so it's kind of funny to see what was green or holding up today. You had Sapphire, you had Iran holding up as well. Kind of crazy to see that. But this is only down 37%. You got QBTS, D-Wave Quantum's down 36%, but a lot of these are down 45, 50% as far as the high beta stuff. IONQ sitting there, it probably looks the worst out of all of them, but it is coming into a bounce area. But it's only down 38. It looks like a bigger move, but it's not. And so, you got a lot of people that were just really up there. They're buying at 72, they're buying at 8, that kind of stuff. And now it's down to 50s, and they're like, ooh, what are we going to do here? And that's why when some of these started to bounce, it was like, it's just going to be a lower high or what? And so far, that's what this is. You got to look at it to be what it is, okay? It's saying lower high for now. Looks like a lot of them are trying to form like these downward channels, or maybe a bull flag if you want to look at it that way. This one's been nuked at 46%. QUBT, I don't know what that is, but Rocket Labs in kind of a bounce area where it's at this trend line here. Will it bounce? It was holding up really well. Not as far down as a lot of these are. AST is another one. Again, you kind of look at it. This is just like Rocket Labs or just like RGTI. And so you got these lower highs. We'll kind of put a channel here and see how this plays out. I always love playing with these channels. So we'll see. And some people say, oh, it's bull flag. It's flagging, right? Could very well be the case. No doubt about that. Look at QMCO. Again, another one I'm not too familiar with, but it's sitting on this trend line. It's bounced like 9 times on. Is it going to bounce? We'll find out. Oklo, I mean, I'm eyeballing that. That's a head and shoulders. That's what that is. And it's on the neckline. So it needs to bounce, right? Or it starts to confirm a head and shoulders. LUEE is another one, came up, got a lower high, starting to sell back off. These energy stocks. Lunar's in a bounce point on this trend line right here. SMR, not quite on a bounce point right now. QuantumScape, this is a funny one because this thing got a big bounce. This has actually followed the fibs to the T. Bounced right at the 0.79 fib, but if you follow the fibs, it's just been, it hit them like tree branches on the way down. It's hitting them like tree branches on the way up. But it's hard to believe. I mean, this thing was at 1907, and it's only down to like 15 now. But it bounced from 13 all the way back up to like 1870, I think it was. So pretty amazing this thing's holding up like that. And the fact I'm glad it's actually following the fibs. I'm loving that happen. So even the high beta stuff can follow the fibs, right? IWM, of course, is suffering because all these that are on there below the 50, sitting on the 0.79 fib. Below it is a daily FEG, so it's in that area where it could bounce. Okay, but it's going to need a lot of the high beta stuff to start moving higher. That's just the way it is. Right now they've been under pressure. So has IWM for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days now. And so there is an area for a bounce on this one right here. You also look over at crypto, what's going on, which is why people think, oh my God, what's happening? Got BTC, look at that, just straight down, right? But where did it bounce? It bounced right there on that trend line, right? The support line where it's bounced before. So is it going to hold? A lot of people think it's probably going to go down between either way from 83 to like maybe 87,000. Ethereum, we talked about this last night. It's sitting here in this monthly FPG and hit the golden pocket to the penny, and it bounced. And so a lot of things are in a bounce area. Does that mean it's going to bounce, just start rocking it higher? Not really, okay, but we are in a bounce area right now, and it's just one of those things where, especially for the high beta stuff, there's the psychology of it, right? Where it's like you got, I should have wrote this on a chart for you, but you got so many people up here called the bag holders, and they're down 30, 40, 50%, depending on where they got in at, right? And all they're doing every night is they're praying to whoever they pray to, whether it's the power of the world, God, whoever, to please just let this stock come back up to where I bought it. I swear I'll dump it immediately and just get out. Like that's that group of people, right? I've been there for one of the stocks, 2 of the stocks I own in my life, and you have too, whether you want to admit it or not. But that has happened. Okay, let me know if I'm not alone on that. I got lucky on one of them, by the way. But, you know, you got that group of people, right? So when it starts to bounce up, which you probably saw right there on RGTI, it started to go up, a lot of them, and they immediately sold back off because the people were up in here. So, oh, I'm out. That group is like, oh, I'm out. And then, of course, you just have the folks that follow the fib and go, oh, that was like a 50% retracement. Let's go ahead and reshort it. Great. And they're going to try to keep reshorting until eventually what happens is they'll get caught, right, and get smoked. So that's what happens with these high beta names. So it's, you know, and then of course you have the group that just won't come back. You say, man, it's not moving as fast as it was before. I don't understand, because the people get burned, ain't coming back. They're going to be like, I'm out. Right? I tried gambling it. It is what it is. Okay, and so we ran it up how we wanted to, and so they won't come back either. So it's going to be interesting, and it'll also be interesting to see like which ones are winners and losers, right? Do we start to see some fall to the wayside or not? Again, like a Sapphire or an Iran, which is actually green this morning. It was green for a long time this morning, both of them, as the market was falling, which was kind of surprising, right? But that kind of lets you know people are buying those stocks. Maybe they're starting to move into that category versus these other like, nothing to do with that thing. And so that's what you got to figure out now. If we do get another wave up, which ones move up, which ones don't come back, right? So that's what you kind of got to look out for when it comes to those. Hope that helps on that. Now, earnings, boatload again. We're sitting here with Humana, McDonald's, Unity, Cameco again had that huge spike up before. Brinks, and then in the afternoon, the high flyers. Well, it's not a high flyer. Robinhood's on the S&P now, but Robinhood, IONQ, speaking of that one, AppLovin's a high flyer, AMC, Qualcomm, ARM, Snap, and ELF. And then data, I'm assuming we're getting this. It says we are. ADP non-farm employment change, final services PMI, ISM service PMI, and crude oil inventory. Remember, oil is what's really saving us when it comes to any kind of inflation or anything like that, or mega inflation, that is. So anyway, hope you guys got some out of it, guys. Let me know what you're doing. You stockpiling cash, you buying the dip or whatever. Please hit that like, subscribe button on your way out. Think about signing up for the membership. Less than McDonald's combo at $7.99. So everything you get with it, just hit the first link in the bottom of the description. And I'll see you guys to wrap up another fun day.